Hi everyone, I am Santosh Kumar DK, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Canara Engineering College. In this video, we are going to discuss Big Data Analytics 17 CS 82, a course update from the 8th semester. The study material regarding this course is available on my site, which is highlighted over here. Hi, in this video, we'll discuss Module 1. Where in module number 1, we'll discuss the basics of HDFS, running an example of a benchmark program, coding Hadoop MapReduce framework, and we'll discuss one simple example of how to run a MapReduce program in Hadoop framework. First, in this video, we'll discuss the HDFS basics. In HDFS basics, we'll discuss the components of HDFS, that is HDFS introduction, block replication, safe mode, rack awareness, name node high availability, HDFS name node federation, HDFS checkpoints and backups, HDFS snapshot, and HDFS NFS gateway. The HDFS user commands will be discussed in next video. Let's see. First, we have already seen from the previous video that Hadoop has mainly two components, that is HDFS and MapReduce. The HDFS stands for Hadoop Distributed File System. This is initially came from the Google's GFS file system. Google GFS file system. GFS means Google File System, where actually have an idea from the operating system subject that what is the file system is. The file system is a mechanism how you are going to store the data in your hard drive. So that is going to be decided by the file system. For example, you might be aware about the Windows famous file system NTFS or else FAT32. Might be you are using your pen drives where you are trying to format your pen drive, where you have noticed that it is going to ask you the file system whether it's a FAT32 or it's a NTFS. So similarly, any operating system you take, even with respect to Unix flavored operating system, Ubuntu or Fedora or Mac OS or Windows OS, each are having their own standards of storing the files. So that is called as a file system. So as I have told you, Windows will go with the NTFS file system, and if I go with a Fedora, it will go with a ext3 file system. So now we'll discuss Hadoop's file system, which we are going to call it as a HDFS. The Hadoop distributed file system is going to store the data in terms of blocks. For example, the block size will be in terms of MBs. The minimum block size will be 64 MB, and it goes like 64 MB, 128 MB, 256 MB like on. But here the minimum block size should be 64 MB. And if I take up a file where I'm having a 1 GB of file, for example, I have downloaded a file from a torrent, it might be a movie. So if I'm going to store it on my HDFS file system, if my HDFS block size, the HDFS block size can be set by the admin. Admin can set the block size. It can be 64, 128, 256 as I told. So consider I have taken it as a 128. So 128 is the block size. If I'm going to store that 1 GB file on my machine, so what it's going to do is it's going to divide that 1 GB file divided by 128. I think it is going to be approximately 8 blocks. 8 blocks will be stored, and where it will be stored I'll discuss again. And coming to the other part, MapReduce part I'll discuss in the next coming video, which is a programming part of Hadoop. I'll not go in detail about it right now. On the HDFS part, we have mainly the Hadoop works with the concept of master slave concept, where we'll be having some nodes as a master node, some nodes as a slave nodes. Hadoop is a distributed architecture which supports parallel programming and parallel computing system. So this is because of this Hadoop is so famous. Not only that, the term commodity hardware, it means which I have already highlighted this term commodity hardware in the previous video, where the commodity hardware is nothing but you can run Hadoop on any machine. It is not on the cheaper machine. It is like you should not bring that complete cluster. Hadoop works on the clusters. It supports clusters where you'll be having a grid type of mechanism clusters. So that complete cluster should not be from the same vendor. All those machines should not be from the same vendor. I can call it as a, the machine should not be homogeneous. The machines can be a heterogeneous. They can be from the different vendors, different architecture, different technology, but they should run the Hadoop framework. They should run the Hadoop framework on a JVM machine. So this is Hadoop is the one which is going to give you the virtual architecture where distributed computing support is there. And till now, there are no operating system which is going to be work on a distributed architecture and which is going to completely control all the machines on the distributed architecture. Hadoop is a one framework which is going to monitor complete system on the distributed cluster, where this is going to done with the help of master slave concept. We are already aware from our networks that is there is something called client server architecture. So it is master slave is similar to that. Master is going to usually in client server what happens, the request reply will happen, but in master slave what happens, master is going to command and slave is going to act, right? Yeah. Next, on the map reduce we are having, actually people used to tell map reduce means it's only having map and reduce. These are all the only two tasks. They are the main task which MapReduce is having, but it is having sub tasks as 5 steps, that is split, map, combine, shuffle, and reduce. Combine is optional, which you can use it or you can leave it, but split, map, shuffle, and reduce are mandatory. As I said, I will not go in detail about this. We'll see these in the next coming videos. Let's discuss more about HDFS. So in HDFS, with respect to master nodes, there are mainly 3 master nodes. So one is a name node, one more is a secondary name node, one more is a job tracker. So when it comes to a name node, what exactly the name node is? What exactly the name node is going to have? The name node is the one which manages all the complete metadata needed to store and retrieve the actual data from the data nodes. It means it's going to have something called FS image, file system image. That is, it's going to keep track of who is having what data. And actually in this name node real data will be stored. It's going to only have the metadata. What exactly this metadata is all about? You know, the metadata is nothing but a description of the data. So it's going to have, it's like if I take up a textbook. So here the metadata is like a content page or our index page, where it's going to tell where the respective contents are, on which page number. That is what is the role of name node. It's going to keep track of who is having what data. Actual real data exists in the data node. That is nothing but a slave node. And the HDFS goes with the concept of it's going to write once and it's going to read many times. Write once, read many times. It's designed to facilitate streaming of reading process, because the data once it is written cannot be modified. Why? Because the data is from the archive, data is from the past. It is not, it might be from the present, but once after the data is generated, it will become past. We are not authorized to modify the existing data. So the existing data should remain as it is, because it's a original data. If you want to do anything on that data, transformation and all, so that you have to do on a separate copy. You make a replica of it and work on it. So that is why it's going to go with the concept of write once and read many, read multiple times. And the files can be appended, because when it goes to with the existing data, if it is a real-time data, the data is keep on generating. So that file can be appended, and on these files, the HDFS will never support random seeks. You know what is random seek is? Like you cannot gather the data from that file from wherever you wish. So it should go in sequence. And HDFS won't support caching. The caching concept you have studied in computer organization, advanced computer architecture. The caching is going to improve the performance of the computing. But why it's not going to support when it's going to improve the performance of the computing? Because here we are not dealing with a small amount of data. Here we are going to deal with a huge amount of data, which is in terms of terabyte and petabyte, exabyte also. So that's why we cannot accommodate so much cache for it. So you know the price of the cache. So that's why HDFS won't support caching, and it's going to convert the data storage processing which will happen from the same server nodes. So it's going to go with the concept of moving computation is cheaper than moving the data. Yes, of course, because here what we are doing, we are having a huge data. To move the data itself, we need lot of time in between the network. That's why what they are going to do is they are going to go with the concept of moving the computation rather than moving the data. And it's going to provide a reliable file system which maintains a multiple copies across the cluster. Why we need multiple copies of the same data? Because if one data node goes down, our complete, we should not lose the complete data. That's why it's going to make a copy of it. It's going to keep a replica of it. And it's going to have, it's a specialized HDFS is a specialized file system. It is not going to be designed, it's not designed for the normal task like normal our Windows and all NTFS whatever we are going to use. It's not like that. It's a specialized only for distributed file system. It has been designed, distributed computation it has been designed. And coming to the part of data node. So what is the job of data node? Data nodes are responsible for serving the read-write operation and computation. So this is the job of data node. Then what about the secondary name node? If something happens to name node, if name node goes down, then this should not become a bottleneck. This should not be a centralized system. Because if centralized system, what happens? If the main server goes down, the complete system goes down. That should not happen. If the name node goes down, somebody should have the data to continue. That is what is there in the secondary name node. It's going to completely record what name node is doing. Whatever the name node content is there, the same replica will be there on the secondary name node. This is going to be there in the version 1.0 of Hadoop. And on the 2.0 of Hadoop is having hot standby node and secondary name node. And the one more thing here we are having is a job tracker. Job tracker is the one huge machine which is going to remember who is assigned with a what job. So which should have a high computing. And this is the one weird architecture here, the master slave architecture, where according to up to now, whatever we have studied, master slave means master should be having a high configuration. It should be a powerful computer, and slave can be a low powerful computer compared to the master computer. But that is not the case over here. Here what happens is the master will be having a lower configuration compared to the slave node. Why? Because here name node job is to only to keep track of the FS image. FS image is nothing but, as I said, it's just like a index or content page, which is going to keep track of the where the data is, which is going to keep track the metadata. And so secondary name node is a exact second version of the name node. It's a replica, so that can also have the same thing. So it can have some GBs of hard disk and low computation power compared to data nodes. But when it comes to job tracker does not keep any much data. It's going to only keep track of what is which job is assigned to whom, and also what job tracker will do. It's going to do the task of assigning the job. So it needs more computation. Here we can have hardly like some dual core machines or some quad core machines or octa core machines. Sorry, quad core machines can be a name node and secondary name node. But when it comes to job tracker, that should be some octa core or hexa core machine, because it's going to have some much more computation compared to these two master nodes. And next is data node. Data node is more powerful than these three things. Why? Because it is having huge data. So we need more memory, we need more RAM, because we have to process the data. The job of RAM, again from the computer organization and advanced computer architecture, what is the main role of RAM? So to bring up that data into RAM and to process it, we need a huge RAM on the data node along with the huge secondary memory. Again, to compute such a huge data, we need a high computational power over here. That's why I call this is a weird architecture, where masters are having a less configuration compared to slave. And here we can go with the concept of configuration. So how to configure it? So there are three ways you can configure the Hadoop. One is a standalone mode, one more is a pseudo distributed mode, the third one is a fully distributed mode. When it comes to standalone mode, what happens? So in the standalone mode, you'll be using all services in the sense name node, secondary name node, job tracker, and data node. All are running on a single Java virtual machine. Why on Java virtual machine? I have already answered this, because Hadoop is designed on the pure Java. So it's all these services, name node, secondary name node, job tracker, and data node are going to run on a single JVM machine. And this can be configured on our laptop, desktops for a educational purpose or for experimentation in the initial stages. Second one is the pseudo distributed mode. So where again all the services are on the same machine but are on the different JVM. It means you know how to configure, you might be aware how to install a virtual machine. So when you are having a virtual machine, what you can do over here is you can have a multiple virtual machines and connect them with the Hadoop in a distributed architecture, where each, for example, there are 4 OS which is running on my virtual machine. Consider it's Ubuntu. 4 Ubuntu machines are running on my virtual machine. So one can be a master node, remaining 3 can be a data nodes. So that is going to give you pseudo distributed mode, where all the services are on the same machine, same hardware, but running on a different JVM. The next one is fully distributed mode. The fully distributed mode is going to have all these name node, secondary name node, job tracker, data node, all these on a separate hardware. So this is what is going to be configured in the industry. The first two, 1 and 2, are going to be used in educational or academics or research purpose. But when it comes to the fully distributed mode, which is going to be used in the industry, where they are going to have separate name node, separate secondary node, and job tracker over there. And how to configure this standalone mode, I have given us detailed steps in my site in this link. If anybody want to try, it's a hardly some around 30 minutes job to do. So if you are having a fully fledged internet connection and you know how to install Ubuntu, so if you have a ready Ubuntu machine installed, then you can go with these steps, which can take hardly 30 minutes. You can try out also. Next, we'll see the various systems in the HDFS deployment. You can notice over here, there is a client. So client machine, which is going to interact with the name node, because name node knows where the data resides. Name node only having the information where data is residing. Name node is not having data. It's going to have only the data where it is, information about the data, which is nothing but a metadata. And it's going to ask, client is going to ask from where I have to perform read and write operation. So name node is going to tell some set of nodes. As I said, the minimum configuration is 3 data nodes and 1 name node. So you can use from the these data nodes. It's going to tell why 3. I'll answer this again in the next slide. Why it is only 3? Why not it should be more than 3? I'll answer this in the next slide. Here it's going to tell these are all the 3 nodes. From these you can access the data. Next, and once it is got a information where the data is available. For it's a simple example, you want to read some content from the textbook. For example, HDFS is a topic you want to read. What you will do, either you will go to the respective textbook, on the content page find HDFS and read about it, look into the respective page, or else go to the index page, find the again page number and get back to the same content. So similarly, name node is doing that. It's playing as the index page or a content page on the textbook, and exact data resides on the pages. Those pages are these data nodes. And client, what he will do, he will perform the assigned read write task. Whatever the operation you want to do, that client is going to take care of read write operation from the data node. If this name node fails, as I told, this should not be a centralized system where the name node fails, the complete system comes down. It should not happen. That's why what they have done is in 1.0 they have given a secondary name node. As I told, now it's in 2.0 and all, they have renamed to the different names, but the job of them is same. So there is something called HDFS block replication. So what is this HDFS block replication is? Because I just told you initially before that we are going to have 3 data nodes, 3 copies. Why 3 copies? Why 3 data nodes? Because whenever you take up any data, for example, I'm having a data file which is going to be divided into 64 MB block size. Initially I told the block size will be minimum 64 or else 128 or else it is 256, like that it will go on. So but here what happens is, I have got a file which is having a 64 MB block size and I have to store that in the data nodes. These are all the data nodes. So now we can notice I am going to store the block 1 and 3 on the data node 1. Consider this is the data node 1. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And block number 3 and 4 on data node 2, 3 and 5 on data node 3, and 1 and 5 on data node 4. And where you can notice, I need not to read out all for you, you can notice at least a minimum 2 data nodes are having the same block. For example, here you can check on the same row. You can check on this same row. I'm having data node 3 on the same row. Yes, this is possible. This is decided by the internal algorithm. It is not going to be by the programmer. It might be from the admin. So next you can check out the second one. Block number 1 is there in the same row, and block number 4 is not there in there is no replica over here. Then of course it is having 2 replica over here. And you can check out even block number 2 is on the same row, and the one more replica of this 1 and 1 is here. The one more replica is there in the data node 7. So why at least minimum 2 should be on the same row? That is what is my question is. So that is having a major base, because if any of the data node goes down, the immediate data should be from the same rack. So that is why block replication should be done in a way where you can retrieve the data in a faster way. I'll show you with another diagram. You can notice here we are going to discuss about rack awareness, where I was just discussing about the previous diagram where I was having this 64 MB blocks of 5 blocks which I have stored in a different data nodes of 8, and I was discussing that at least 2 replicas should be on the same row. This is the textbook image. Now I'm having some image from the source, that where I'm going to get the name node, secondary name node, and job tracker. You remember I told about 3 master nodes where name node, secondary name node, and job tracker should be there. And the rule is that in industry the way they are going to configure, they won't keep them on a same rack. These are all the one you can see in the yellow thing is called as a rack. This is rack 1, 2, 3, 4. And the rule, they are going to design this in a such a way that these master nodes should not come in a same rack, because if one goes down, the complete system should not go. That is the main reason. So now you can see this name node is having one server and it is having multiple data nodes, and here you can see some 12 data nodes are there. The industry is going to configure this in a such a way that at least minimum, not minimum, maximum 25 nodes, 25 to 24 nodes will be there in the one rack, because if you are going to increase the rack size also, then if it fails, then complete rack fails, then it will be a big problem. That's why they are going to keep the rack in a moderate size. And next, a secondary name node. If this particular rack goes down, the secondary name node will continue with this, and that is why it's going to have in the one more rack. And job tracker I told, which is the one main important thing which is going to keep track of which data node is doing what job and all those tasks. That's why this is also kept in the one more rack. And now all the remaining some other data nodes are kept in the different rack. Now you can take the rack block number 1. Block number 1 should reside one copy over here, at least 2 copies somewhere else, or else 2 copies over here and 1 copy somewhere else. That is how it should go. Why? Because if one data node fails, if this data node fails, for example, consider I have block number 1 over here, and I'm going to have block number 1 somewhere over here also, and I'm having block number 1 somewhere here, consider. So now if this data node fails, and what should happen is, this should not take much time to replicate this data in one more machine, and navigating between this within the rack is easier compared to navigating between the racks. And here we are not dealing with the data in terms of MB, here we are dealing with the data in terms of petabyte and zettabyte and exabyte, so even in terabyte. So that transmission of data takes lot of time. That's why what they do is, the rule is there, if you are going to have a replication, the minimum replication is 3. That is the standard size which is fixed. It means if even though this complete rack goes down, then I'll be having a one more replica over here. With that I can generate the remaining replicas. Next, what happens if this goes down? Immediately the next node, it's going to be decided by the algorithm. So what it happens is, it's going to do is, it's going to generate the one more replica of this on the same rack. It might be this one. This one will be having a one more replica once this goes down. And what happens once it comes up? Once the admin is going to fix it. So now we are having a 3 replicas, right? Randomly it removes one replica. Here only we are having 3. It will not touch this. It will try to remove one among this, or it might be this also. It decided by the random algorithm. There is no rule on it. It's a random algorithm. But when it's going to decide in which data node which block should be stored, that is completely decided by the algorithm. It's not a randomized algorithm. It's going to be based on where the data is, which is close to what computation. That's going to be done, decided by the algorithm. Hope it is clear now. Next concept is rack awareness. The rack awareness, why we need to know this, why we need to have this rack awareness? Because of this, when it fails, when data node fails, then how to recover it. That is the main thing, because we are dealing with the high data. So if it fails, if it is not in terms of MB, let's transfer in the network. Even you are having a 5G network, when you are transferring a petabyte, terabyte of data, it takes time. And by that time, computation should stop. That's why. And in the rack awareness, there are 3 cases: best case, better case, and good case. The best case is data resides on the local machine, on the same machine where the computation is going on the data node. That is the best case they are going to tell. And data resides in the same rack is better, as we have discussed now. and data resides in the different rack is good, because if this complete thing goes down, and it's going to be having a one more copy. It means when you are going to get a best performance when you are having a data on your local machine, and when you are going to get a better performance when you are having a data on the same rack, and when you are going to get the good performance when it is somewhere in the other rack in the same cluster. Next we'll see name node high availability. Before that, I want to just tell you something called HDFS safe mode. The HDFS safe mode is nothing but where once the name node is started, once you started the cluster, even I'll show you in the demo how to start the cluster. There is a batch file which you have to run to start the cluster. That is by giving the start all.sh, which is a shell script which is going to start the complete cluster. And once you start this name node, what it is going to do is it is enters into the read only safe mode, because like safe mode means it should be no other plugins, nothing, no other additional things will not be disturbing the computation, disturbing the name node operation. And once it's going to start into the read only mode and in the safe mode, so the blocks are blocks are replicated. Once the blocks are replicated, you cannot delete the blocks. That is what is the main motto behind starting the name node in the safe mode. The safe mode enables the name node to perform mainly two tasks. The one task is the previous file system state is reconstructed by loading the FS image. What was the previous file system was there? I have already spoke about FS image. By that, it's going to reconstruct the file into the memory and replaying the edit log. So it's going to start from the editing the log from that. So the same logs I'm going to continue over here from the journal nodes. And the second one is the mapping between the blocks and the data nodes. Just before we have seen that where the blocks belongs to, in which rack, in which data node, that is called as a placing them is called as a mapping is created. This mapping is created between the blocks and data node by waiting for enough of the data nodes to register so that at least one copy of the data node is available. This is what we spoke just now. This is the role. This is the role which name node is going to play, and based on the rule that at least one copy should be available in the particular data node. Next, we'll see this name node high availability. Why? Because the name node is the one which should be available throughout the process. If it goes down, then everything will go down. That's why we have to keep it alive as much as possible. Not as much as possible, 24/7. The best example I can give you, our Gmail service, ATM. So that should run throughout 24/7. It should not be like, okay, I'll work on this time and I'll not work on this particular time. Then that is not feasible to accept the service, right? So similarly, this name node should run always. So for that, it should be highly available. So we are aware that we are not building a centralized architecture over here. We are building a distributed architecture. When we are building a distributed architecture over here, what we have to do is we have to avoid the single point of failure. Who is the single point of failure now? Name node. If name node goes down, everything goes down. So we have to keep him alive throughout the process. That is the main motto. Name node hardware often employed redundant power supplies. We know that it's going with a power supply network and all. There might be some technical glitches due to that name node can come down. So to give a solution for this, we can go with the name node high availability, where Hadoop cluster will be having minimum two nodes. One is the active node, one more is the standby name node, which we have seen from the previous diagram, which we are going to show over here also. So the active name node is going to keep track of what is happening with all these data nodes. And this is also recorded in the standby node by referring to the journal nodes. There are 3 daemon processes are going to run, and these 3 daemon processes are tracking down the active name node, and it's going to update the standby name node. These what happens over here with respect to these three daemon process? It's going to have all the logs. Just before we spoke about the safe mode, it's going to start with the edit logs. So these edit logs will be there in these journal nodes. These journal nodes are going to play a major role in bringing back the name node when it goes down. Next is the name node federation. We can go with the name node federation. So the federation is going to come across the limitation provided by the one name node, because one name node is having a limit of like so many data nodes can be there, because if we are going to add up more data nodes also, name node will be heavily loaded. So we can have a multiple name nodes. So now what we can do, we can bring those together and we can call it as a federation. So the federation addresses the limitation by addressing the support for multiple name nodes and namespaces in the HDFS file system. The benefit of doing this, why we have to do this is, one is we can provide a scalability on the namespace. Like we can have multiple name nodes and we can join them, we can bring a very big cluster and the performance will be increased. Yes, of course, you can have multiple name nodes and very big clusters of them, and it's going to improve the performance. And you can also isolate the system. There are three main advantages of it. The first one is the namespace scalability. The second one is going to improve the performance, which we call it as a better performance. The next one is a system isolation. So system isolation means multiple name nodes enables the different categories of applications to be distinguished, and users can also be isolated to different namespaces. For example, I am working for marketing. I'll go with the marketing name node and namespace, and somebody else is working on a project, maybe in development, he can go with that, and someone else will be on the maintenance, he can go with that particular namespace. So it's going to isolate the people on the cluster, and it will be easy to monitor when they are isolated. When they are together, it's difficult. These are all the three main advantages of federation. Next is the name node HDFS backup and recovery. So HDFS is going to provide you backup and recovery using one checkpoints and backups, and the second one is using the snapshot. The name node stores the metadata, which we have already discussed in terms of FS image of the HDFS file system in a file called FS image. The file system modifications are returned into the edit logs. I was discussing it's going to start continuing with the edit logs. What it will be having, those edit logs are having the what all the modification I have done on the FS image. And at the startup, the name node merges these edit logs into a new FS image. Currently, I'm having some state in the FS image. Next, what I am going to do, from this onwards, I'm having some more state, some more appends, addition and modifications are done on the file system. That is there in the edit logs. Once I restart my name node, once I start my name node, this existing edit logs will be merged with the FS image, and that will be creating a new FS image. This will be written on the secondary name node or secondary backup node, where we are going to retrieve, which we have seen from the diagram. The secondary name node are nothing also called as a checkpoint, periodically fetches these edit logs from the name node and merges them in and returns to the updated FS image in the name node. The main job of this is to retrieve the logs and merge it to the FS image and give it to the name node. That is done by the secondary name node. Also, it keeps the copy of it, because if name node goes down, it can help it to bring it up. And name node supports one backup node at a time. In a given time, a name node is going to support with only one backup node. And what about HDFS snapshot? The HDFS snapshots are similar to the backup, but created by a administrator. This is not done by automatic. This is done by a administrator. That is done by with the help of a HDFS command called HDFS space DFS space snapshot command. About the commands we will discuss in the next video, where I'll give you some examples and some demo of the commands. So any HDFS command should start with a HDFS DFS, and the whatever the command you want to use, later you have to write it. So the snapshot will be created with the help of HDFS DFS snapshot command. The HDFS snapshot commands are read-only point-in-time copies of the file system. They are the read-only, and at that point, whatever the content is there, that will be taken as a snapshot. These offer some features. The snapshot can be taken of a subtree of a file system or entire file system. Like, you know, the tree architecture of the folders. If you go to Windows Explorer, where you can see that the tree architecture, like on the C drive you are having Windows, on that you are having some other folders, on that you are having some more folders, like that, the tree architecture. So you can take a snapshot of the particular subtree, or else you can take a snapshot of the complete system. This is the one feature it's going to support. It also supports data backup, protection against the user errors, and disaster recovery. With the help of snapshot, we can also back up the data. We can also protect the user data from the user errors. Also, it's going to provide natural disaster or any disaster which happens, we'll be having a backup of the data. Snapshot creation can be in, it is not taking a lot of time, like checkpoints and backups. It is instantaneous. You are also aware, screenshot or snapshot. If you take a snapshot, it's like a fastest compared to the other tasks. So it is instantaneous. Blocks on the data nodes are not copied over here, because the snapshot files records the blocks list at the and the file size. So here what it is going to do is, where what data is there, that FS image it's going to take, no backup of the data. It's going to take a snapshot of the FS image, what we are talking, that name node, which will be keeping track that metadata of the file, that is going to be taken as a snapshot. There is no data copying, although it appears to the user there are the duplicate files, but it's not going to copy. Snapshot do not adversely affect regular HDFS operation. It's not going to affect the HDFS operation. It's going to work along with the HDFS operation. So this is about the HDFS basic concepts, which we started from seeing what is HDFS, Hadoop and HDFS, MapReduce. In HDFS, master slave architecture. In master, we have discussed about name node, secondary name node, job tracker, and slave node. We have seen data node, and we have seen some diagrams where we have seen name node availability, how client is going to retrieve the data from the name node, and how it's going, information about the data from the name node, and how it's going to work on those data, and what is rack, why the rack is required, why rack awareness is required, how the backup and recovery process is going to work in Hadoop, and also like what is name node federation, and how it's going to play a vital role in the HDFS. All these we have discussed in this video, and this is completely referred from the textbook, Douglas Edline textbook. What all the topics I have covered, you can get it from the content page. I need not to mention from which chapter I have covered which content. Thank you.